My objective is to give you the ability to face the big challenges in your life and be victorious. Numbers 13:33 says, "And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight." That must have been a terrible sight. They actually saw giants with their own two eyes. I only remember seeing giants on a TV show called The Game of Thrones. They were just walking among the enemy's army, and they looked formidable, to say the least. Sometimes I feel for those spies. It seems like they were up to the fight, but when they saw the giants, their hearts melted. I try to imagine what the giants were doing. Were they lifting weights? Were they sharpening their swords? Were they practicing their fighting skills? Whatever they were doing, it probably wasn't normal stuff. It was giant stuff. It's no wonder the 10 spies' hearts melted. These giants struck fear in their hearts. Here's the point. Whatever God told you to do will include the threat of giants. When you think about what the Spirit is leading you to do, you hesitate because you see the giants. That's why we don't attempt much. We see the giants in the land. The giants are the efforts we will have to put forth. The giants are the troubles and the delays. Sometimes the giants are qualifications that we don't have. Sometimes the giants are only in our minds, but they're just as real. They're a lot bigger than we are. And common sense tells us that we're outmatched. We see ourselves as grasshoppers. We are like grasshoppers compared to what we are facing. But with God on our side, we are not grasshoppers. We are more than conquerors. The interesting thing is that we won't have giant killing faith until we're actually in a fight with a giant. God won't allow us to be tempted above our ability. God sees the giant as an opportunity to show out in your life and get glory. Giant killing faith won't come unless we're facing a giant. I remember going to Dr. C.L. Jackson's church to talk to him uninvited. I was in my early 20s, and for me, I was facing a giant. I stood outside the stadium-like church, ringing the bell until his secretary looked out of one of the top windows. And the next thing I knew, the great Dr. C.L. Jackson was at the door, asking me how he could help me. I said, "I'm a minister, sir, but I'm in trouble." He escorted me up to his office, which was beautiful, and he asked me to tell him about it. I told him that my wife had left, and I couldn't go to church without her. I even told him that I was having crying spells. He said, "Young man, not much would happen around here if I didn't cry sometimes." He went on to say that he did some of his best preaching when he was in a storm. He said, "You need to pull yourself together and go to your church." He said, "You can't whip anything with your back to it. You've got to face it." I said, "What will the people say?" He said, "Son, go to your church. And if the people say what's wrong, tell them to pray for you. Don't say anything else." He said, leave immediately afterwards if you need to. He said, if you let the devil start you to running, you'll be running forever. And then he said this, David faced his giant, and the Lord gave him the victory. You have to face your giant to win. I left his office with a giant killing attitude. We can't focus on giants. We must focus on God. Here's how you know that you're in the flesh. When you're in the flesh, you focus on what you see, what you hear, and what you experience. When you're in the spirit, you focus on God and what he said. I like the testimony of the two spies, Caleb and Joshua. They focused on how things would be in the promised land, flowing with milk and honey. We should spend time thinking about the good results of winning. We should picture it in our minds. Stop thinking about what's not going to happen for you and think about how good you will feel when God helps you, making it happen for you. Don't think about much paperwork, or don't think about how much paperwork is involved in setting up your business. Think about how you will feel about the business being set up right. Don't think about all the hard work it takes to get the job that you want. Think about how God will reward your efforts and make your life much better. The giant named Goliath was a scary sight to see. He was scary to everyone except David. David focused on how Goliath had defied God and what David would get when, not if, he defeated him. I'm thinking about something in my life that represents a giant, and I'm going to begin working on it this week. Giants are standing between us and the life that God has for us. I like what Joshua and Caleb said. Let us go up at once and possess the land. Without hesitation, let's start facing our giants and defeating them by faith. It seems like one of the most important things is our confession. Jesus said, whoever says to this mountain, be thou removed, or be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will happen, he will have whatever he says. We must speak to the mountain before it will move. We have to start talking like David talked to Goliath. We must begin talking like Joshua and Caleb. Our mouths are not just for eating. Our mouths are for talking. You must walk the walk, but you must also talk the talk. Some people never get into fights because they talk such a big game. People are reluctant to try them. Joshua and Caleb said, we are well able. And just listen to what David said. David told Goliath, today the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And I will give the dead bodies of the Philistines this day unto the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. That's real trash talking. I see you beginning to speak to your mountain. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Don't approach your giant with a closed mouth. A closed mouth equals a closed destiny. It's easy to forget your word game because when I get serious, I usually close my mouth. Maybe you do as well. But God says, open your mouth wide and I will fill it. Remember, you must face your giant. God will help you to whip him. But be sure to focus only on God and what it will be like when he gives you victory. Then open your mouth and speak the victory. I see your giants coming down. Amen. If this message has blessed you, share this message and subscribe to my channel. Remember, it's a sin when you don't win.